Welcome back to Catholic Conversations. As always, I'm your host, Joelle Zarnowski, and this week we are joined by Anthony and Chiara from Generation Life. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So since we're in Respect Life Month, we're focusing all of our topics this month on life issues. And so you guys have been spending time in our Catholic high schools talking to our students about life topics. I'm going to let you guys kind of explain what Generation Life is and, you know, what the mission of Generation Life is and what you guys do. So take it away.
Sure. So Generation Life is a nonprofit. We're based out of Philadelphia. And at the moment, our zone of operation, if you will, we're in the Mid-Atlantic. And the main bulk of what we do is we go to schools and churches to speak to students about 7th grade all the way up through college. Okay. And we talk about both we have a pro-life presentation and we also have a chastity presentation.
Okay.
And the way that they relate in our organization is that we have always felt that, well, by addressing chastity and the healing of broken relationships, the pro-life question takes care of itself.
Okay.
So that's what we're all about. And we also do some, sidewalk counseling, praying in front of Planned Parenthood and that sort of thing.
Okay, great. And then so what drew each of you to be involved with Generation Life?
My dad actually used to work for Generation Life when I was much younger.
Okay.
And one of the taglines that we have now that still was our tagline that long ago is "Red, I'm worth waiting for" stickers.
Okay.
So when I was little, I would go on trips with my dad and I would be in charge of handing out the stickers. And I didn't really think anything of it. Like that was just, what I did when I was a kid. Nor did I really have any interest in working in this field at all until college. I majored in human development and family studies, and I did a lot of theology of the body related discussions and like clubs at Franciscan. And as I was figuring out where I wanted to work, like my goal had always been to work in sports. But then my dad was like, have you ever given Generation Life a thought? And I was like, wait, I think that's something I would love to do.
Yeah.
So then I just started working here in June from that. So.
Great. And how about you?
So I was a middle school teacher at a Catholic school for a couple of years. And I really got well acquainted with kind of the state, at least in our diocese, of how the kids were on their awareness of these issues. Mm-hmm. And of course, I saw it both, in the chastity department. I saw confusion in that sphere. A lot of broken relationships, even in a Catholic school.
Yeah,
it's like it's definitely not. Maybe it's not quite the wild west of a public school. Yeah. But still, it's worldly.
Right. Absolutely.
So, and then of course, even on the pro-life issue, a lot of these kids were not properly catechized on the church's teachings on that issue, and so I was looking for a break from teaching every, being in the classroom every day. And I've always really enjoyed the working, in a capacity where I'm working somewhere in the church, right? Yeah. And so I saw this opportunity came available, and I thought, man, this is great. It combines, the best of both worlds. I get to teach, but I don't have to be there every day. So.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So in the visits that you've had to our schools, other schools that you've been to, what do you see as far as like the response from the students? Like what kind of impact are you seeing from the conversations that you're having with those students and the information that you're sharing with them?
Well, I'll go first on this one. I think one thing that's really interesting for me is because at least when I give the chastity talk, very often if we split it up so that I'm addressing the boys and then like Chiara or another female speaker is addressing the girls.
Yeah, fair.
Because there's different issues in that realm.
Yeah.
And of course the kids are more comfortable.
Right,
if
exactly.
If it's segregated by sex. So anyway, with the boys, it's interesting because you bring up pornography, and it's like most of the talk leading up to that is kind of lighthearted, and we're just talking about the concepts. I'm telling them a bit of my story. You mentioned the word pornography. It's like everybody gets real sober, and it's just interesting with the guys because you can just tell in their faces, how they're receiving it. They've likely had to struggle with that themselves.
Right.
So you can almost see conviction on their faces. So like right off the bat, we make a huge impact, I think, by just getting that out on the table and just discussing it. Because it's all these things are like a big problem. The way the devil wins is that we're human beings and we're like, oh, well, this is like hush hush stuff. Like we don't want to talk about this.
Right.
You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, well, we need to talk about it.
Yeah,
So.
of course. And then how about your experience with the girls?
Yeah, I really like the fact that all of our talks are very dignity based and they really like appeal to your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said earlier with the I'm worth waiting for. And I think that resonates a lot with the girls because I think a lot of the reasons why girls struggle in these issues is because of their insecurities or their self-esteem or not having confidence in their identity.
Yeah.
And not only like have we had feedback from girls who've said, oh, thank you, like you gave me the courage to follow through on this, or I've been feeling like changing my mind about, what I've been doing, and now I have the courage to do it. And you hear those stories, but then you also just see the reactions on their faces and like how they almost start to glow a little bit when you tell them that they're not alone, that they're worth this kind of love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. I think that, life for teenagers nowadays is so much harder than it was when I was a teenager. Like, yes, the internet existed, but it didn't exist in the way that it does today. And there's so many more pressures, I think, on teens and young adults to fit in, to look a certain way, behave a certain way, and carry themselves with a certain level of confidence that they don't have. And so they find ways to kind of like mask that and make it seem like they have it. And it might not always be in ways that they're respecting themselves. Mm-hmm. And so to have people who are older than them, but still like it's not like me going in there talking to them like I'm old enough to be their mom and they're like, yeah, okay, this is another adult. But this is somebody who not that much older than them. You're not so far removed from their experience and they're hearing it from you and they're able to be like, oh, wow, okay, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only person struggling, and there is hope for me to change or maybe feel more confident in doing the right things. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
So I know you mentioned that Generation Life has both the pro-life and chastity messages. So how do you help people see the connection between the two? I know that you talked about, this idea of like if you're talking about chastity, you're really getting to the root of the issue with abortion. So what does that look like in your conversations with these young people?
Yeah, it's really centered. Chiara mentioned theology of the body. It's really centered on emphasizing the dignity of the human person, mm-hmm. which, of course, just increasingly in our world, I mean, you would think that would be something that would just be known, even in Catholic circles. But increasingly, I feel like that's a kind of a revolutionary message, in a sense, that you have innate dignity. It doesn't matter, what you look like or even how you feel. It's just you're worthy, and that, like Chiara said, our tagline is "You're worth waiting for."
Yeah.
So we really emphasize those pieces in both of the talks. That the child in the womb has innate dignity, and the mother too, and that both therefore are worthy of love and respect, and they need to be protected, their lives. And then for the chastity side of things, we're like, you have dignity. The person that you're in a relationship with has dignity. And so what this is about, it's about having a healthy relationship, respecting each other, as created in the image of God. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that we've talked with a couple of our other guests this month about, there seems to be kind of a disconnect with like when we think about Respect Life, so often it's like we kind of only focus on one issue at a time. And really everything's connected. It's not like we're only worried about the unborn or we're only worried about the elderly. There's this whole space in between that the dignity of human life it still needs to be recognized and spoken up for. And I think that especially young people, we talked with one of the teachers from Bishop Ludden Grimes earlier, and she was talking about how the kids really struggle with seeing their own dignity and not realizing that in and of itself is a Respect Life issue. Mm-hmm. So I think it's great that we're seeing more of this effort to tie all of those things together. It's not just focusing on one part of it. It's focusing on the whole person and their whole life. So that's great.
Yes, I agree.
So I know you mentioned like how difficult some of these topics can be to talk to these kids about. So how do you approach those conversations in a way that it allows the kids to feel like hopeful and empowered?
We've actually gotten a lot of positive feedback on this, like especially recently, because we're not afraid to talk about topics, but we also don't frame our sentences or even like our body language in a way that makes them awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like just being the one speaking, if you're not awkward about it, they're already going to be like, oh, like I can almost like view this situation from outside my body a little bit. Like I don't have to feel all the pressures that I typically feel day to day, because they can just think about this like as a topic,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like exactly what it feels for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you take that awkwardness out of it, they're much more likely to be able to see like their worth and their dignity and then the goodness of their bodies, as opposed to them just freaking out like because you mentioned anything in general. So
yeah. And I would imagine too that you're helping to create a space where they're not feeling judged or, you know, like they're being disciplined, I guess, in a way. You're just having these conversations with them and helping them to realize this for themselves. It's not a, we're here to lecture you, we're here to make you feel bad for any decisions that you've made. We want to help you feel this way for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, we're very big on emphasizing with chastity that this is for everyone, and it's something that you can practice no matter where you're at. You know, we're not introducing like a purity scale and saying it's like, well, some people are more chaste than other people. It's like chastity's something you do.
Yeah.
You can do it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So, it sounds like you both have been doing this for a little while. I mean, you obviously have experience that goes all the way back to when you were a little girl and your dad was working with the organization. So, are there any moments or stories from your time doing this that really stick out to you that either inspired you in your work or just, you know, made you feel really good about the work that you were doing?
I certainly do. I once was speaking at an all-boys high school near Philly. And after one of my talks, a student came up to me, and I had enough of a break in between talks that I could actually have a nice conversation. And the student came up to me in the campus ministry lounge and asked if he could speak to me privately. And he just opened up his heart of, you know, what's going on in a relationship in his life. And he was looking for encouragement and guidance. And it was really cool. He said, I remember one thing in particular he said. He goes, "I want to please God," and you know, you could tell where that was coming from.
Yeah.
And it was a really beautiful thing to be able to affirm, you know, him and help him to recognize who God is, not a merciless judge handing out a bunch of rules, but rather a loving Father who is trying to draw him to himself. You know, and to really encourage that. And I could just tell that, you know, that's what he needed to hear. And the Holy Spirit gave me the words. And that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And Chiara, what about you?
The moment that comes to mind, it actually wasn't someone we were speaking to, but it was someone who was volunteering with us. And so sometimes we have volunteers who help us with our various events. And this one time the event was more focused on chastity, and the volunteer came up to me and she was like, like, even though I know about chastity, like it's still hard to live out. And so she was asking me for advice in, you know, how to initiate conversations with her boyfriend. And I thought that was really moving because she was strong enough in her faith to be like volunteering for this, you know, chastity event. But she was still aware of the fact that it's like a daily struggle.
Yeah.
And, you know, you might be brave enough to talk to a stranger about it, but are you brave enough to talk to your boyfriend about it? And that's a human issue.
Yeah.
And I think she left feeling a lot more confident. And so that made me feel really glad that God blessed her in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's a good reminder too that this isn't something that's only affecting like people when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
It's not just the pressures of high school and, you know, you're going through all of the changes in your body and trying to figure out like who you are, how you fit into the world and what that means for you, what God wants for you. this is a struggle through your whole life, and especially being able to have those conversations with people. Yeah, it is very easy to have a conversation with somebody that's a stranger. You don't owe them anything or feel like you owe them anything. But when it's somebody that you have a close relationship with, there's that fear of, are they going to accept this?
Yeah.
Are they going to respect it? Are they going to understand where I'm coming from? Are they going to be on the same page? Could this tear apart our relationship? You don't know. You don't know how the reaction's going to be.
I can't begin to tell you how many times in our Q&A after the chastity talk, we hand out, how we do the Q&A is we hand out surveys so that they can fill them out anonymously.
Yeah.
And then we just go through them, as time permits. And a question we get all the time, that I get all the time is, I'm in a relationship. How do I like the sound of this. What if my boyfriend doesn't want to practice chastity?
Right.
And having to address that. I mean, that's a very common question.
Yeah. And it's hard. And you would think that the easy answer is, well, then they're not the person for you. But that's not always the easy thing to accept or to even understand that, maybe this person isn't who God has meant to be in your life if they can't, agree and respect that and be on the same page. And especially when you're young, you're young and you think that, oh, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And that's really, really hard to let go of. So before we wrap up, is there a message that you would want to share with any young adults, or we do have some high school students that listen to the podcast, for those who might feel like they're called to stand up for life, or to live out chastity, but they aren't sure where to start?
I would say my message is that God doesn't call the perfect people, like he calls the broken people. And that does include all of us because we are broken people. But I guess not to be afraid of your own weaknesses or your own limits, and trust that God is going to use the gifts and talents he gave you to make a huge difference. Great.
And how about you?
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I would say, you don't have to have all your stuff figured out. You just have to discern moment by moment what's the right thing to do, and then take that step, and then discern again and take that step. And the Lord guides you through that process. So you don't have to have your 10-step, life plan all laid out. You just have to have the right intention.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you both again so much for being here with us today and for sharing your work with us and with the kids in our schools. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing. So, and we will also make sure that in our episode description, we have a link to your website so that people can go and they can learn more about the work that you're doing and just continue to support you in that. So thank
wonderful.
you.
Yeah, just to say, you guys here at Syracuse have been awesome to us.
Great.
We've really enjoyed your hospitality. So thanks so much
good.
for having us up here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to our listeners. We'll see you next week.